So about 5 years ago I set out to travel the world. Being straight out of college had left me in debt, ever more desperate for any job I was overqualified for and generally depressed. I felt isolated and alone in my small town in Washington and found the only way to get out travel. My high school buddy suggested I look into WOFIG and volunteering as a way to travel cheap, and so I did. The way it works is quite simple. You work for around 25 hours a week on some farm for food and housing. The draw is that since the community of cheap travelers is quite big, it is a great way to meet new people, get outside of your comfort zone and just let yourself live and figure life out. Fast forward 8 months and I am a seasoned cows hit shoveler. I started out in Washington, Oregon and went south to California. There, I was able to save some money. I was paid under the table for some extra work and was now faced with a decision where to go in the world. The excitement of being able to purchase a ticket to almost anywhere in the world got the best of me, and on the advice of my hippie volunteering partner, I chose it at random. I went to a randomizer website and clicked the country button, Georgia. The country of Georgia. To say I didn't know anything about it was an understatement. But the fear of the unknown made it exciting and exotic somehow, and so I did it. I purchased a ticket and started browsing for a farm that could host me. There were few options, and most were remote and hadn't even an internet connection. I messaged every single one, because few ever respond, and got a response from one farm on top of a mountain. The pictures showed a traditional Georgian stone house with a large garden out in the back, a family with several cheerful children, grandparents having dinner, animals that seemed warm and inviting. The description was written in good English and the requirements for work seemed reasonable. I was excited. After I flew into Tbilisi, the capital, I followed the directions that they have sent to locate the farm, which wasn't an easy task. Few in Georgia speak English, the roads are messed up since few have been maintained since the fall of the Soviet Union, and the country is generally poor. It took me around 20 hours of Soviet buses and taxis, weird serpentine roads and paths to get to that desired blue pin on my map. It was a dirt path leading up a steep hill, into a national park up in the north of the country. There was nothing for miles on end but trees and their silence. As I got up that hill I saw the house about half a mile away on even a steeper hill, surrounded by the trees. From that viewpoint it seemed abandoned. Overgrown, brown and dreary. As I walked past the gate, Giri, the apparent owner, approached me. He was a heavy, small middle-aged guy with a big smile on his face. He shook my hand and in broken English started to show me around. He also smelled of booze. As he was showing me around, I noticed that there wasn't anyone there but us. I asked about his wife and kids and he brushed that aside and said something to the extent, "They're away right now." By this point I am creeped out. From browsing around it was apparent that the farm was in deep decline, apple trees and crops were dying, the roof of the small barn caved in, the house itself full of trash and smelling of mold. It was obvious that Giri was going through a rough patch. But I wasn't going to turn around and just leave in the middle of nowhere, without a plan, having not slept for the past 36 hours. It was evening, and after feeding me well and trying as best as he could to hold a conversation in English, Giri showed me my room on the second floor and I went to sleep. I almost immediately blacked out from the exhaustion and stress, and would have slept for 10 hours if I wasn't awoken by a strange noise in the middle of the night. It sounded like something metallic and heavy was being dragged across the wooden floor. In that sleepy in-between state I listened to it for a few minutes, thought nothing of it, and went back to sleep once it stopped. In the morning, Giri, now sober and grumpy, asked me to repair some of the windows and doors in the house as he himself planned to go and fetch some components in a nearby village. Again I got this weird feeling creeping down my spine. Something wasn't right. He didn't maintain eye contact and was evasive. There was no cell reception, no internet. Once he left, I checked around the house to get a general idea of the place, and it became apparent that the place was hardly ever lived in, like one of those abandoned houses. There was broken furniture, newspapers and old photos on the floor, a shattered mirror. I took my phone and looked through the saved listing again. The photos didn't match either the backyard, the garden, or the walls. Giri wasn't in any of them. It was a completely different house. Now by this point I am full-blown panicking. I pack my stuff and start to leave when I see a group of 3 men going up that first hill. There aren't any other paths I can take, so I go behind the house and rush down this hill into the forest. After some time I stop and listen. I hear them in the house. They're clearly looking for me. Afraid of making any noise, I remain still, hidden behind a bush. I don't know how long I wait, but they were persistent. At some point I hear them leave, so I count until some large number and proceed back into the house and path. And once I find it's all clear, I book the heck out of there. Never ran this fast. But I am still in the middle of freaking nowhere, no traffic, no public transport. I reach a paved road and start walking in the general direction from where I remember coming. Hours go by and finally a car drives by and stops. Now in a horror movie this would have been Geary and his friends. But this was actually a really nice Russian family that gave me a ride to town. The listing disappeared from the website in a few days after I left, and I haven't heard from Geary since. I've yet to make sense of that experience. I have traveled since and volunteered to some people, once they hear this story, laugh and say that the guy was coming over with a couple of friends from the village to have a chat over a few beers. Some say he was bound to kidnap and kill me. But I trust my gut feeling. Something was really not right. So let's never meet again, Geary. This took place around 2 years ago. I was driving to work, a 5-hour drive. It was already dark. About 3 hours of driving I started to get tired. I bought myself a coffee and some snacks at a gas station and went on. But snacks and coffee can only keep you awake for so long, and I started to feel tired again. This part of the road was nothing but thick, dark pinewood forest around me. No other cars on the road, nothing, only insects smashing my windshield now and then, an empty road. I was now extremely tired, and at one point I nearly drove of the road, for almost falling asleep. I have to sleep now. I can't wait for a gas station. I need to stop as soon as I see a place where I can park my car, anything. When I'm tired I fall asleep really fast. If I'm tired enough I can fall asleep in the middle of a sentence when I am talking, so it's a bit urgent for me to find a place where I can stop. It felt like an hour, but probably just 5 minutes go by and I spot this little pocket in the road. It's like a parking space for quick stops, like peeing, switching drivers or stuff like that, not even a real resting area. I stopped here, turned down my windows to check if I heard any weird noises. Total silence. I turn up the windows again. Nothing bad is gonna happen. I haven't seen a car for like 30 minutes. This road is empty. If someone is checking out my car, I bet it is the cops checking on me if I am alright. I leave my keys in the ignition and I lock the doors, just to be safe. I adjust my seat a bit, to make it more comfortable to sleep in, and I take off my shoes and put them on the passenger seat on the right. It is so nice to close my eyes and I instantly fall asleep. I don't know why, but something wakes me up. I can't really see anything. Some kind of bright light hits me in the eyes. First I thought it was a flashlight, but then I realized it is the high beams from another car in my rearview mirror that is blinding me. I look in my left mirror, and I see a dude walking up beside my car. Maybe he wants help with something? Should I make it clear to him that I'm in here? He is right beside my left back door. Should step out and ask what he is doing? I didn't have to. The dude proceeds to jerk and pull on my left back door. I almost pooped my pants when I realized that he is trying to force his way into my car. My seat is adjusted for me to lay down, and I pushed it back max. I can't reach the pedals, which makes it impossible for me to drive my car. I slam the car horn and it breaks the silence with a roar, and the dude jumps. That gives me like 2 seconds to push my seat to reach the pedals. But it's still way out of adjustment, so I'm kind of pulling myself to the steering wheel, because my seat is laying flat and isn't supporting my back. Anyway, I start my car and drive up, with a cloud of smoke from my screeching tires. It's hard driving a car with nothing holding up your upper body, but I managed. As I leave, I look in the rear mirror and I can see how the dude stands there and looks at me, and I can see 2 more guys coming up beside him, what I can see in the silhouette of their beams. One of them has something in his hand, like a wrench or crowbar. I drove super fast, way over the speed limit. My whole body was trembling with adrenaline and fear. I drove like that for like 30 minutes, then I stopped at a gas station to fix my seat and put my shoes on again. I figured out I was only sleeping for like 10 minutes. Well, I didn't have to sleep until I got to my destination, which is surrounded by heavy-duty fencing and the building has an alarm. I told my boss the next day and he said they actually have problems with what we call it in Sweden, road pirates, criminals that forces you to stop on the road and rob you of everything, including your car, in that specific area. It could just be 3 nice dudes that wanted to check if I was okay. Then why didn't they just knock on my driver's window